will we ever know the answer to this? In my heart, I know what I believe. But let me just go ahead and rehash this topic so we can find out in real time in 2019 how we feel about this. I made a video a while back called DNA Test Results. How much Jewish DNA did Jewish Americans show? And recently I received a comment from Jason Owen, and here's what he said. Quote, being Jewish is confusing because it's not just religious, contrary to what people here are saying. Jews are a historical nation and have racial characteristics. That's why they can detect it in DNA, end quote. So what Jason just said is what I agree with 100%. I definitely believe that often you can look at someone who's Jewish, whether they follow the religious faith or not, and a lot of times you can tell that they look Jewish. I've had that happen to me, and I'm barely Jewish. I mean, in theory, based on my mom's test, I would be like 7.5. That's all I would be. But people have seen it in me. They've seen it in my mom. And so for us to have so little Jewish DNA, you can only imagine people who really are not mixed with other things, but are largely just have been consistently raised in the faith, and therefore that DNA is more consistent. I mean, let me just give an obvious example. Steven Spielberg, the legendary movie maker. When you look at Steven Spielberg, even aside from his last name, you look at that man, he's clearly Jewish. There's no way around the fact that that man is Jewish. And even someone like this, Jack Black, the actor. His father converted to Judaism, but Jack Black's mother actually Jewish. So that means by DNA standards, in theory, Jack Black would be, quote, half Jewish. But of course, Jewish people would say, no, he's 100% Jewish because it was through his mother. So, but even then, when you look, we're like, oh yeah, I guess I could see even how Jack Black would be Jewish, but I could see how he'd only be half Jewish. For me, it's very obvious that Jewish DNA is physically noticeable. And I think it all has to do with the person, the individual, defining what does it mean to be Jewish. Because you could be not subscribed to the faith at all of Judaism at all, but every ancestor in your family tree is Jewish. Actually, there was a girl who, through Twitter, she was the one who convinced me to go through MyHeritage. And she showed me her test, and hers showed 100% Jewish. So she had that. So the DNA is there. It's a real thing. But I think what people get caught up on is looking at it from the religion. And for me, they can be two separate things. You could be 100% Northern European and you'd be living in Scotland and you convert to Judaism and you're Jewish by that standard. Or you could be like that girl. She was 100% Jewish, but maybe she decided not to be part of the religious faith anymore. So now in theory, is she not Jewish? I don't know. But what I am saying is, what I do believe is, despite the imperfection of DNA tests, and they never are going to be perfect, I think it would be silly not to look at the fact that there are definitely Jewish traits that you can see in people. And people who are Jewish are able to recognize what those traits are. And I think for the outsiders, they're not able to see it the way Jewish people are able to see it. For the fact that, I don't want to go around claiming, yeah, well, I'm Jewish just because my mom's test showed 15% Sephardic Jewish. That doesn't, for me, but the reoccurring comment I get from actual Jewish people, especially people from Israel, when they hear that and they see it in the videos, what do they say? They say, no, you're Jewish. Your mom's Jewish. That's the way they perceive it. So I think that has a lot to do with perception, and I don't think anyone's largely going to agree with this, but a lot of people, they get caught up in this when they see my videos and I talk about Jewish DNA. They say that that's ridiculous. Judaism, it's a religion. It's not a DNA. I say it can be both. It can be either or. But if we're talking about DNA, Jewish DNA, despite being mixed up throughout history and throughout geography, to me, it's just as legitimate as any other kind of DNA, because we're ultimately just looking at genetic markers anyway. But still, you take someone who all of his ancestors are Jewish, you compare him next to someone who all of his ancestors are Protestant, and you're going to notice the difference. One's going to look Jewish and one's not. All right, what are your thoughts on that? Right here.